What happens when a team from outside the main region starts crushing it in the Brazilian Championship? I know, we all know. No one ever says anything important about it. By the end of this video, you'll find out which is the most underrated team in the history of Brazilian soccer. And you won't be one of those fools who underestimate them anymore. Athletico Paranaense scored 34 goals. Here they are. These 34 right here are the goals they scored. And what caught my attention was the variety the team has. They attack well on the left, on the right, and through the center, and the players know exactly what they need to do on the field. The feeling you get is that they can score a goal at any moment. Let's take a look at some of them to understand how sharp these guys are. This one is against Santos. Take a look. The ball comes out wide down this corridor over here, and it feels like this number 8 looks like he wants to try something, but he couldn't find space, so he passed it to his teammate, right? When you look at it, you think, the ball came here, he tried something, and it went back. But actually, no, everything he's doing is still part of his plan. Why? Because the same thing happened twice. Look, I'll show you. Here he draws this defender over to the right channel. He comes here, Santos right side of the attack, right? Atletico's left side. And notice the difference between the Santos player and this other one here. Look. This one down here who's in the corridor is going to chase the opponent and vacate the wide channel without any hesitation. While this Santos player here, he's going to hold his position. He's going to think, man, I can't leave the central channel. No, I'm going to stay right here. But in this case, the right corridor of Santos and the left of Athletico are left empty. Look, the defender is even signaling. Look, he stretches out his arm and says, hey, there's someone over there, huh? They left someone there. And that's Athletico taking advantage of whoever comes down their left corridor. And Santos is right. Usually, it's a player who doesn't mind chasing whoever has the ball, leaving the space behind. And for the second time in a row, Athletico does exactly the same thing, pulling this Santos player out of their right corridor. And they find someone who's facing the corridor so they can really gain ground, have all the time and space in the world to make a cross at training pace right into the box. And then once you're inside the box, fighting against Viveiros here is a nightmare, right? The ball stays alive, he manages to get the shot off and scores. The main thing I want to highlight is the feeling you get that this guy tries something and it seems like he gives up when he passes the ball. But actually, it's all part of the plan. This happens much more often than we think. In this other play here, it's a similar feeling. Look, it looks like Luis Gustavo is trying to figure out what to do. Then he can't find what to do. He thinks, I'll just pass the ball. I don't know what I'm doing. But trust me, man, that's not it. Here, Luis Gustavo is mapping out the behavior and balance of the midfield line, of the guys, and watching everyone's behavior. If you look closely, the distance between these two players here is a bit greater than the other members of the line. So there's already kind of a tendency toward imbalance, you know? If they really get spaced out, that's a window to take advantage of. Luis Gustavo maps out the whole field. And not coincidentally, he goes straight to where there was already a tendency for imbalance in the opponent's midfield line. And he passes the ball to the guy who pushes forward. Breno Lopes moves forward, and when he makes that run, the imbalance here has already been created. And then what happens? The fullback is forced to step up to the other guy who's about to receive the ball, and then the domino effect starts happening. This fullback jumping makes this Athletico player realize where the most valuable space to attack is at that moment, and when he attacks, that's when the key point of the play happens. It's an attack down the wide channel, this time on the right, with a guy who's usually in the central channel marking the wide channel. It seems like it's the same thing, but it's not. The fullback becomes a specialist in that area of the field. He knows how important it is to protect the run to the byline. The guy who's in the central channel, actually his habit and instinct is to know the importance of closing down space and not letting the guy turn to face the attack, you know? Each area of the field that someone marks requires different habits and techniques. It's no coincidence that this defender was beaten in a way the fullback wouldn't have been. Look at what happened. Notice that the guy with the ball changes his stride rhythm, see? He pretends he's going to stop, fakes a cross, and suddenly speeds up. See, he faked it and then accelerated. Why did he already get past here? Because the instinct to close down space, to go for the ball, to attack, to put pressure on the guy doesn't really happen in the wide area. It's more in the central area. So with the defender marking too tightly here, he ends up opening up the most valuable space on the field, which is the end line, and then it passes into the box, and it's a goal. So do you understand that each of these actions, each player fulfilling his role very well and having the tactical awareness of what's happening, It's training, repetition, talking with the coach. The coach says, look, when you do this, the likely consequence is this. When you do that, the likely consequence is something else. So let's always try to explore it more or less this way. And then a well-trained team starts internalizing those movements. They start internalizing that positioning. And then you'll never think that this is a guy who doesn't know what he's doing. See? Actually, he's calmly choosing which option his team will understand, which option the opposing team will react to in a way that's beneficial for Athletico. There are several possibilities going through his mind until he starts the play, and really everyone was on the same page until it ended in a goal. This play here, look, is Viveiros' goal against Chape. Check out this guy's sharpness in reading the game. They're going to exploit two things in this attack here. First, this midfield line that's just 3 players. In this 5-3-2 from Mirasol, they're going to shift these 3 from one side to the other. It's a long distance for these 3 to run, and the chance of someone slipping up and getting too far from their teammate is higher. That's what they're going to try to exploit regarding the midfield line. On the back line, they know the fullback steps up, chases, tracks his man, so he doesn't let him breathe with his back to goal. And in that brief moment, the back line turns into a line of 4. Check this out, okay? First, I'm going to show you this midfield line. Look at the distance. The 3 of them are really well balanced with a very similar distance between each other. When Athletico shifts them to one side, then back, then shifts them to the other side. Here, at this moment, look how much more spread out they are. How there are already bigger gaps between the midfielders. That's the point. And look at the fullback I was talking about. Look, this fullback here. Notice how he's going to get really tight to his man. At this moment, the back line only has 4 players. So, by shifting the midfield line to the other side to open up this gap between one and the other, and with the fullback pushing up here and leaving the back line with fewer players, this guy here decided to pull off a genius move. He noticed only 2 Mirasol players here in the midfield line, and that's very few, and that's a lot of space for the ball to go through, and he moved to overload Viveiros' marker. He created a marking assignment. A possible scenario for Athletico Paranaense is that if this ball gets through, it's over. And that's exactly what happens. This defender who was on Viveiros, he finds himself forced to jump and take away the space from the one receiving the ball. In doing so, he leaves Viveiros. And Viveiros, compared to this other defender here, is already in an absurd positional advantage. Cross to him becomes easy. He doesn't even need to make the effort to get ahead and put the ball in. He's already in front. These guys can think and execute so many things in milliseconds because it's a lot of repetition in training.
Skål är bestämda with it and sapping and destroying the poisonous and arsenic and the tank.
And then the guy's instinct starts to get really sharp. Where he moves, what he does. What can be explained, something that can't be explained at all, is how 90% of viewers don't subscribe here. No way, come on. Send this video to the WhatsApp group. If you got it through WhatsApp, send a message to your friend saying you sent it here because he asked, right? Did you subscribe too? But let's go. Let's check out another play. Look at Luis Gustavo's cleverness in this move here. This time it's going to be an attack through the central corridor because the team has options. Notice that these 2 midfielders from Chape, if Athletico manages to advance through the flank, look, this guy here, he moved too far from the central corridor and came way over here. Look, and opened up space there in the central corridor. What's Luis Gustavo's trick? Already noticing the space he had here, look, he already scoped out the field to see how things are. He's already sure that this guy is moving too far from the central corridor. And when Chape crowded this corner too much, he already knew the ball was coming to him. Look, he's already mapping it out, and here he already knows where the pressure is coming from. But instead of acting quickly, knowing the pressure is coming, look at this trick. He waits for the ball to come to his feet on purpose. Look, he even glances out of the corner of his eye. Look, he lets the guy get really close calmly and then passes it to his teammate. Because he knows that the more he lets the pressure get closer to him, the freer his teammate will be when he receives the ball. And here, how does attacking to the middle work? You set up a runner to attack in behind the back line and a big guy to stop and stay to receive the ball at his feet. And then the defense is left with a dilemma. If they follow the big guy in the central corridor and take away his space, they open up space behind them where the runner is already going in behind. If they adjust to the runner going forward and drop a little deeper to protect the space in behind, that's good. Leave the big guy free and put the ball at the Giants' feet. Let's go. Back and forth and goal for Athletico. All these goals came against teams defending in a mid-block, low block, or mid-low block. Really compact. Athletico managed to get into a situation that, man, is not the easiest thing in the world. We're seeing here the complexity of the movements and the passes. And when the team goes to press high, does Athletico really have the answers for that? For them, it's easy. Look at this long pass here. Man, this pass here, that's over. 50 meters, man, that's insane. While the ball is traveling, you can see Botafogo's midfield line here. You see Botafogo's back line there, everyone running back, and Athletico gaining territory across the whole field with a pass. Perfect pass. Cross, without trying anything fancy, the ball ended up going straight to Viveiros. And Viveiros' cleverness in this play was a little faint, making the defender close in on the center of the box, while actually, look. He moved toward the center, noticed that the defender was going to follow him toward the middle, and then he went to the far post to receive a cross at the far post. The cross didn't come the way he imagined, but the ball ended up right there, and luck favors those guys who move well, always looking for space to operate. Gets right to his foot just to tap it in. And this play here helps explain why I was hyping him up and calling him a brute. Look, Flamengo pressing really high. And then the goal kick was played with a long ball down the central corridor. Look at Viveiros here, pushing through with brute force. The defender marking him from behind. Look, this isn't a foul, this is just a physical battle, fighting for space. Man, come on, look at that. Danilo even stumbled a bit. And he couldn't do it. And look how calmly he just cushions the ball with the side of his foot. A physical battle going on there. He's like, all right, here you go. Super calm with the biggest, what do you call this, man? Delight? Finesse, you know? After this brute force battle here that even made Danilo wobble, he goes in delicately and passes it back. And with that, Athletico gained all this territory that Flamengo was trying to press high. And then play after play, they got a bit lucky, but the play was inside the box, a scoring opportunity because of that. Because there's a brute doing his job here, and this isn't just a random battle. This is a skill. And it's important that the coach and the coaching staff understand this as a skill the player has. Why? So they can make the best use of it. Do you know how Athletico scores goals from set pieces? There's a very clear instruction for the guy taking the free kick to shoot it into the top corner with an unstoppable curve, and it's a goal. No, seriously, I'm not kidding. I'll show you how Viveiros is used in set pieces. Check this out. He's never the target in free kick situations. This play here shows two behaviors of his that I want to point out, and you'll understand exactly what the coaching staff is thinking. Just watch. Here he stays back. The cross isn't aimed at him, and look how well he's positioned to receive a flick on with his head and finish with his foot facing the goal. That's not exactly what happened. It hit the post, but that's because you can't predict everything that's going to happen, right? The coach and the movements are planned to increase the chance of something happening, not to make it happen. 100% of the time or never happen at all, you know? So here, it was to increase the chance for Viveiros to receive a flick on and finish with his feet. For some reason, the coaching staff doesn't understand that he's good enough in the air to be the guy to receive all the aerial balls. And then after a shot hits the post, there's a rebound and the play goes on. Just look at how Viveiros behaves now. This is the second characteristic that the coaching staff noticed about him. Check out how he gains space here. Actually, he doesn't gain space, right? He doesn't let the defender take the space he's already in. He uses his body really well because of the cross here at the near post. And when the pass comes back, he keeps using his body. Just look at how crafty he is. He uses his body this time not to let the defender take his space and get ahead of him. He uses it to benefit his teammate so his teammate can have a little more time and space to calmly think about the finish and shoot more like in training because there's no one coming to pressure him, you know? So he uses his body to benefit his teammate. Besides, he's not the guy who's the target to head the ball. Now we're ready to analyze set pieces and how Viveiros is used. He stays here in the middle, getting in the defender's way so he can't occupy the most valuable space in the box during the cross. Look, this defender here, when he tries to move back,
there was simply Brutamonte in the way.
The cross didn't go to the center of the box, it still went to the far post. But this delay he makes in the defender's movement works for when the guy who crossed the ball decides to send it to the center. And this is the move that takes advantage of both his characteristics right away. Why? Because he stays, and when the ball comes to the far post, he's also facing the goal to finish with his feet. Like I said, for some reason that I don't really know, the coaching staff doesn't use him in aerial plays. They prefer not to do that. When Viveiros positions himself offside, it's a strong sign that the cross isn't meant for him. And pay attention to the behavior of this guy who's marking. He's going to try to move forward into a dangerous area of the box, while Viveiros doesn't let him advance, just using his body, just using his bulk. And this teammate of Viveiros is passing through with clear path exactly because of the human barrier he created, and Athletico scores the goal.
This play is blatant, and I'm sure you've already realized that this is a rehearsed move.
But just to be mean, I'll show you one more. Viveiros is this one here, who's moving backward, and he's already watching who he's gonna get in the way of.
Ball in the middle?
Look at him here in the way, not letting the defenders get space or a path to mark, and the ball goes exactly where his teammate manages to head it with one less marker because of Viveiros.
In other words, Viveiros isn't just important for finishing and scoring goals, he's important in the set-piece system, and he's not only important for Athletico Paranaense, he's also important for Rai.
He bought him for his team in our fantasy game, and the bastard is winning everything. He's crushing everyone. You want to see me restless? It's me losing in some game. You want to see me pissed? It's seeing him win everything.
And now Rai is winning everything with Viveiros on his team. Since at this point, only the real ones are still here at the end of the video, this fantasy game is being built with the most loyal part of our community. It's a group of people who join our fantasy, play the game, and leave comments here on the videos with suggestions and improvements.
You're more than welcome to help build this fantasy game from the ground up. Who knows? It could become one of the biggest in Brazil.
If you click here, you'll understand exactly how it works. It's getting better and better. Take care.